Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bankroll Burners, the podcast for poker players who can't stop getting it in bad. I'm Mike.
And I'm Josh.
I am coming fresh off of a huge losing session. Always very exciting to talk about sinking 3.5 buy-ins. It was a ton of fun, though. Hilarious table, lots of talkers, lots of characters. Huge swings. I mean, it was really it was the sort of session that's like a dream session if you win.
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience. I did not quite lose that much, thankfully. Of course, we can't both have a terrible or excellent session. That would just be silly. But I did. It was a similar situation where, I really did a good, established my image. I've been trying again to use a lot of my recent studying and really play more aggressive. I think I actually went over the line and found some bluffs in spots that I shouldn't have because, I just felt like I needed to raise. And it was I cultivated my image well. Everyone was super, fun, good to play with, and I don't think I won a pot at Showdown of more than $100. So it wound up being one of those sessions where it was like, wow, I watched a guy river set a set of kings when he's all in to suck out on someone twice in a session to run a stack up from 80 to 1600. I'm like, damn, if I, it's one exactly as you say.
Run that good.
Yeah, if you, I don't need to run that good. I'll take one set and I'll try and make the max with it. So kind of a fun, definitely still a really fun table. A really good mix of people who were clearly just there to have fun, people who wanted to see flops, and a couple pretty solid aggressive players. So it was a really great table for 1-3 game.
Sweet. Well, why don't you, for those who are new to the podcast, what we do here, we talk about hands we played, and we try to figure out how we could have played them better. It's an interesting endeavor, given that neither of us knows very much about how to play hands well, but somehow we seem to convince ourselves. So
well, and if you have watched this podcast, you know that quite often our analysis amounts to, yeah, seems reasonable.
Seems fair. Yeah.
So cool. I'll hop right into it then.
Cool.
So let me quickly remind myself of what happened here. Fun stuff. Okay. We are playing 1-3, no limit, at Encore Boston Harbor. I've done a couple sessions there recently, mostly convenience driven. As I've mentioned, it is tough to get out of Boston on a weeknight. Don't really want to drive up an hour to anywhere. Even
when I lived near Boston, it's also tough to get into Boston, I guess. But that's more from a mental standpoint. It's like, oh man, that's so much work to get into Boston. Why don't
I really can't fault anyone for thinking that. It is tough to get into Boston. There's always anyway. We don't need to go into this, but this is, as I mentioned, it's a pretty good table. This is a fairly early hand in my session. Both myself and the villain are sitting about $500 effective, which we're both sitting with about $500, I should say, which makes the effective stack $500. Please don't kill me, Bart, for messing up effective stack nomenclature,
Yeah, who knows? What could that word mean? What does effective really mean?
Right. So this is going to start the way many 1-3 tables start, as 3 players limp in. And I am sitting in the hijack with ace-7 of hearts, and I elect to raise here.
So this is, is this a 9-handed game or an 8-handed
This is a 9-handed game.
So one person didn't limp. Wow, crazy.
One person, the nit in the low jack folded.
Wow, crazy.
So I bump it up to 20 with ace-7 of hearts, which honestly might be a little loose. It might be okay to overlimp here with ace-7 of hearts and raise some more wheel aces. But I mean, I know you're never going to call me out for raising a suited ace, and so I will continue to do so with impunity.
I can't think. I understand that, yes, maybe sometimes this is silly. They say, oh, you don't want to do this in low-stakes games. You don't want to be over-aggressive with your open raises over limps because everyone's just going to call you. And I'm like, yes, fine. So I'm going to get to play a multi-way pot in position with a suited ace. Fine. Happy to.
Yeah, and I'm in the hijack, so there are a couple players behind me, but I bump it up to 20 over the 3 limps. So, as you said, that kind of sets a pretty bad price for the cutoff in the button, but it does, if 1 or 2 limpers call, then I'll be in position to them, and I won't be super unhappy with my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like this a lot.
As it happens, only the under the gun first limper calls, so we get a heads up in position. It's like even better.
Oh my god, I didn't know that was possible.
I didn't either, to be honest.
The original limper called, and the ones behind him didn't. That's crazy.
It's simply unheard of. But anyway, so this is about as good as it can get. This under the gun player, I kind of had a thought that he might be on sort of the tighter side. He was an older gentleman. He was an older Asian gentleman, so it could go either way, to be honest. But it seemed like he was pretty limp happy, more call happy. Less of the super aggro crazy type. Okay. And the flop is going to come down here: 8 of diamonds, 8 of hearts, 5 of clubs. So we've got ace 7 of hearts. So we flop a double backdoor here with 1 over. You
have a backdoor flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. Not the best type of backdoor straight draw, right? Where you've got a 2 gap, but nevertheless.
Yeah, we have a ton of cards on the turn that could give us more equity, right? Any heart 9, 7, 6, 4.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not right. It's 8, 8, 5. So you actually have a 1 gap. So this is great. Never mind.
Yeah, so it's not 8, 8, 4. It's 8, 8, 5. So we do have a bunch of cards that give us a gut shot, open ender, flush draw, etc. This player now checks to me. And I elect to bet 20 here into 50. So just, around 40% pot.
How often are you betting this board?
I mean, I don't think that often. I guess probably pretty often, to be honest. But something interesting that I heard that I was studying and reading about flop sizings is that paired boards specifically, I think you want to take a smaller size on a lot of the time, even if you wind up betting, even if you bet infrequently. It's kind of like monotone boards where you might not bet 100% of your hands, but a monotone board or a board that's like 3 to a straight, like a 7, 8, 9 type of board, you're allowed to take kind of a smaller sizing just because there are cards that can so drastically change the texture on those types of boards. Not so many cards that can do that on this type of board, but I think smaller sizings are generally okay on paired boards like this, especially in a single raised pot. I know that people say kind of, if the board comes out all low cards in like a 3-bet or a 4-bet pot, then you can kind of start blasting.
Right. But I don't have a problem with your sizing here. I was just genuinely curious, in a single raised pot. I mean, obviously if it was like King 5, I'm sure you're betting this board all the time, but it's just 8, 8, 5. It's just sort of interesting, like how selective you want to be with your continuation bets here. If you want to just be betting like any 2 overs, I would think probably not.
Yeah, I think it's totally. I think I was about to say that. I would probably check back, some like random king, queen highs, king, queen, king, jack, queen, jack, whatever. That, especially without a backdoor, because those hands do have equity but can't really call a check raise. If I flop top pair, then like the pot is relatively small, and I'm still pretty likely to be good.
If you turn top pair, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So they have equity, but this hand specifically has like a ton of equity.
Oh yeah.
And like this hand can anyway. So it's an interesting question. I don't think I'm betting 100% of the time, but I might because I just want to put money in. It's certainly possible.
No, okay, it's interesting. Obviously, this hand you need to bet this hand absolutely. If you're under c betting if you don't bet here, so I assume he calls.
He actually raises, basically min clicks. He raises to 45.
Okay, I think you have to continue here, but putting that aside, what do you think he has?
I mean, he could certainly have an 8. Although, I mean, people do sometimes just like min click because they just think it's like the only raise size they're allowed to do. He could have like pop like 9s or 10s or something like that. I've certainly seen that.
Limping those hands though?
What?
Is he limping those hands?
Maybe. You wouldn't think so, but you'd never know what type of player you're going to run into in a live 1-3 game. It's possible. Could have like 6-7, but we are blocking 6-7. But like that's certainly a hand that is a prime bluff candidate here.
Also, I think older folks don't tend to make those type of raises.
Yeah. So
more solid ones.
I would agree to start with value. I think probably either an 8 or some sort of overpair that he's limp called with, which to me would narrow it down to 9s or 10s because I would expect someone who limps like jacks plus to be re-raising a solid percentage of the time.
Sure.
Even an older gentleman, people do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also thinking he could have 6s, or
Sure.
7s, block 7s, or even 4s. I've definitely seen that sort of play, like with an under pair. It's like, well, let me see where I'm at type of deal. And I do think very likely you are. I know we talked about like, well, he could be doing this with 6-7 or 7-9 or 4-6, but I think given how my experience with these types of players, you probably aren't good here. You probably do not have the best hand.
I agree, but I mean that said, that's totally fine because we have to call like 25 to win, 90. So we're just getting laid a gajillion to 1. Yeah, like even we almost have the direct odds to hit an ace over the next 2 streets.
Totally, but I mean, if we get sort of an irrelevant card on the turn and he checks, I don't. We just have to remember that we don't have showdown value. I think
that's true
versus this type of player, but yeah.
Okay, so we do call because I do think this is pretty much a mandatory call with like double backdoors. We are supposed to just be calling here a whole lot. That's going to put the pot now at about 140. It's going to leave us with about 435 behind. So we've got like 3x pot. And the turn is going to roll off one of those irrelevant cards. It's the 3 of diamonds, and he checks.
There we go. So now we're in this sort of weird spot, right? Because we did not pick up equity, but we know we're not good.
Well, I mean, once he checks, I do think we can be good some of the time. Like, if he is raising a draw, like, he certainly might slow down upon getting called.
I think that, like, against you, that would be true, right? Like, against someone who's raising their draws. I so rarely see this type of player raise their draws. That's, like, an older person.
I guess what I'm thinking is if this is the type of player that's where this logic is sort of leading me is if this is the type of player who's not raising like a 6-7 type hand, then I would probably think they're not raising a hand like pocket 6s or pocket 4s all that often, if ever.
I don't know. I like that's the sort of I think they do to sort of see where they're at. That's been I mean I don't know. That's just this type of player. I see people do that all the time in these lower stakes games. I mean, I've seen it less at 2-5 than I did maybe at the 2-2 level, but just people who are like, I have a pair, I could be good. Let me see where I'm at.
Yep, I've definitely had. I mean, I've had other types of players do that for sure. I had some like, I've once had a guy like check jam me on the flop for like a huge overbet. And when I folded, he just showed 2 offsuit overcards. And I was like, oh, we're playing the overcard game where... Yeah, it was really funny. So I know what you mean, that some people just like... And especially like when you take small sizings, like some people have like read enough poker and think like, oh, small sizing means weakness, so I'm going to attack this weak bet. Where like the concept of betting the same size with your whole range they haven't kind of studied that part yet. So certainly, I guess he could have some small pair. I guess I haven't seen it that often.
Okay. No, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm just thinking. I mean, he could also just have a 5. He could have 9s, like you said. So, I mean, but what do you do when he checks to you?
I mean, I think I can just kind of check back. Like, I mean, take my ace high. If I hit like a 7 or an ace, like I do have more showdown value. But also, like, once he check raises on the flop, with a guy like this, it is. As you mentioned, like I am inclined to agree that he's probably not raising 6-7 a whole lot, and so that means that that most of the hands that he's check raising the flop with are probably not folding like at any point in the hand.
Maybe so.
But it's interesting because if he had an 8, one would think that he would be barreling. Even a sort of more passive player would be betting here.
I agree with that. I agree he probably does not have an 8 as played.
Right, but am I going to get him off 9s, 10s, whatever else one of those hands? But could he have a 5? Sure, maybe it makes kind of sense to barrel here. It's also just awkward because like this is kind of like a 0 equity bluff or a low equity bluff where like we kind of have to hit an ace to feel like comfortable. So, and I did make some bad low equity bluffs in this session, but with that said, in general, I'm trying to move away from them, despite what my recent results may have you believe.
No, yeah, it's like, what are you? Yeah, what are you betting here? Like, what aren't you betting here? Or what are you supposed to be betting here that is not this hand? It's like probably. I mean, nothing really picks up equity on the 3 of diamonds, so it'd probably just be like a flopped flush draw. You would continue.
Well, there is no flopped flush draw because there's a rainbow board, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. For some reason,
But I mean, if I have ace-7 of diamonds, right, I can bet here. If I've got ace-x of diamonds that have made the same bet on the flop.
You're right. So then, so this is fine. Just check it for sure.
I see your point that we may not have showdown value against the range he's representing, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to start bluffing our whole range that doesn't have showdown value.
Oh yeah, I know, and I mean
which is a trap I'm really falling into quite a bit sometimes. Where I'm like, well, this looks like a great hand. My opponent checks back, and I'm like, all right, time to start going for it. When really I have an underpair, and that's
And the other thing too is this is such a even if you were gonna over bluff this spot, this is the worst candidate to do it with because you're blocking his folds. You're blocking.
Right. I'd literally rather do it with 2 overs. I'd rather do it with ace-9 of hearts.
Sure.
Because then I at least block some of those value hands.
Yeah. So okay.
So I decide to check it back, and now the river is going to roll off the ace of diamonds.
Oh yay!
Which completes the backdoor diamond flush draw, but it also gives me top pair.
Yep. Got bailed. Cool.
Did get bailed, and he checks.
Awesome.
So of course I think I have to bet here.
Mm-hmm.
The pot's 140, and I feel like, given sort of what we discussed about his range construction, and now that he's checked twice, now that he's checked twice, I feel like this is a spot for having an exploitative, small sizing, but it's kind of interesting because maybe I should just be, betting huge here and trying to get called by somebody who just doesn't believe me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can you go through the board one more time for the
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got ace-7 of hearts. The board ran out 8 of diamonds, 8 of hearts, 5 of clubs. I see bet he pretty much min-clicked me, and this was an early position, a limp caller. Check raised me, pretty much min-clicked. I called. The turn is a 3 of diamonds, introduces a backdoor diamond draw and goes check, check. And the river is the ace of diamonds, which completes the backdoor flush draw, but gives me top pair. And he checks once again, so I feel like I have the best hand pretty much always. Mm-hmm. And I know we've kind of talked in the past, and now I'm remembering some of these conversations we've had that are where I have definitely been a big advocate for, if you bink top pair on the river, you should just bet big because you're just not going to get that much credit. And maybe that's really the avenue I should have taken here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to think from a balance perspective, what are you supposed to do? What sizing are you supposed to have on this river? And I think you have almost no flushes as played.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking in general, river sizings in position from a balance perspective are pretty much always supposed to be half pot or greater.
Right. And so I'm trying to figure out are we supposed to be betting half pot? Are we supposed to be betting pot? Are we supposed to be 3/4? So I'm just trying to think you never have a really netted hand here, whereas he might.
Sure.
So I don't think you're allowed to go super big, to be honest with you.
That's a good point, that even kind of within that half pot plus sizing scheme, we can kind of then further narrow it down to actually see, if we're not betting a ton here and we're not, or if we're betting a lot here but we don't really have any nutted hands, we can go on the smaller side of that range. Whereas if we have a super severe, a super big nut advantage, we can just go huge.
Right. And I will say, I don't really think he has many flushes either. You would think he would barrel a diamond. I mean, you would think, but
one would think that if he had a diamond draw or an 8, he would, which are basically the only hands that beat me, that he would have bet the turn. But it is live poker, and people do play passively with their draws and then trappy when they complete them sometimes. So it's not ruled out. I would agree that he should have more than I do.
Yeah, I don't think either of you have like that many super strong hands here, but I think he probably has a little more than you. I like maybe half pot or maybe 3/4, somewhere in there. I think either's probably fine.
Yeah, I think that's better as we sort of talk about it, and I recall some of our previous conversations. I wind up going 45, which I think is just too small because he could probably call a bigger bet. Like that's basically a third pot. And he pretty much snap calls and like chews me out for being a river rat as he shows pocket queens.
Pocket queens.
Yeah, so
oh my god.
Let's say I was not disappointed when he got up within the next hour and was replaced by an action player.
Oh my god. I love live poker.
Yeah.
It's like,
Look,
what
if you
on
check
earth?
raise queens
Yeah.
and then the board stays clean and you check the turn.
I love the like whole thing. It's like I've heard certain live regular players talk about how the under the gun limp is often a trap with a strong hand to do a limp re-raise. And in this case,
One would think that would be the case.
one would think. I love it. I love it. Oh
So
my
just kind of an interesting hand with the like raise on the flop, and then I was like, oh, I feel like I could have gotten more value, and did kind of think about betting the turn as well, but kind of thought, I have other hands that could either pick up equity or just like have equity, right? Like I would rather barrel also like 6-7 on the turn because like that hand just has a lot of equity and also has less showdown value.
Yeah, no, I think you have many bluffs here. I think you played it quite well.
So I don't know. I mean, I could have gone. I think the river sizing is probably my biggest mistake, which now I'm kicking myself for. In the moment, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this guy by going small, and now I'm like, what a fool.
Well, you could have got more value, but no, I do like your check back on the turn, and you definitely convinced me that was right. I just wanted to think it through, but I think you're definitely right that checking on the turn there.
And then he showed queen. So who's laughing now? All right, so let's move on to your hand. Are we talking a 2-5 back in the cash streets this week?
Yes, I actually did play another tournament this week, and it went so horribly for me, which I was like, wow, that makes way more sense. So, no, I mean, I really I was like, I really feel like I don't know what I'm doing in tournaments, so I should just stick to cash. So that's what I did after I busted at the tournament. After I busted my second bullet, I went and played some cash. I had a fun session there, and then I played again just yesterday, and I had a long session yesterday, and I want to talk about two hands, so we'll save the best for last. I want to start with a really interesting hand against a competent reg.
Awesome.
So this is someone I played very little with.
Intentionally?
No, not intentionally. He seems like a nice guy, and I'm not like super choosy. I'm happy to have regs at my table. There's so few of them at Best Bet Orange Park. They're like mostly nice people, fun to hang around.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think we have many shit regs. I'm trying to think. I don't think so, but not that I can think of. So yeah. Anyway, this guy sitting down. He's trying to talk in the talk. I just kind of could tell he was pretty good, and I'd seen him around. So, and this is pretty early on in the session, and we are 455 effective. We're 7-handed. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's a different. That's stack size for a different hand. We're 500 effective. I apologize.
Perfect.
So starting stacks.
This is the hand that we're finally going to get to talk about things from a theoretical perspective. It's going to go heads up. We're 100 big blinds deep in a cash game. I can't wait.
I love it. It's going to be so exciting. So yeah, 100 big blinds in. We're actually 8-handed. I do apologize. And we have the hijack, who is this nice reg, opens over no limps to 3x. He opens to 15. I mean, I can't believe what's happening right now.
Wow, this is like.
And it folds to me on the button.
So there's one fold.
Well, but still.
Okay.
Yeah, so it folds to me on the button, and I make it $45 with Ace of Hearts, King of Clubs.
Sure.
So 3x open, 3x 3-bet. He calls. It's like.
And the blinds both fold?
The blinds fold. The solver could have written this hand.
There's no tank cold call from the small blind?
Nope, not this time.
Wow. Okay. So this is good stuff.
Yeah. So Ace of Hearts, King of Clubs.
Got it.
Nothing. I don't think there's much to say about pre-flop here.
Yeah. If you don't 3-bet Ace King, look up some theory, people.
Look it up, people. Look up the theory of poker.
Every time you don't 3-bet Ace King, an angel loses its wings, and that angel is Doyle Brunson.
Yeah, you're hurting the Godfather. No, but you are supposed to flat Ace King from the big blind sometimes versus early position opens.
Yes, that's fair. But that's not how many people play Ace. That's not why many people choose not to 3-bet Ace King.
Look, far be it from me to try and tell our listeners how to play poker. I think that would be quite hypocritical. So
that's completely fair. You don't listen to us.
So we go to a flop now of Ace of Diamonds, Bink 10 of Diamonds, 9 of Hearts.
We've got ace of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, 9 of hearts. Pretty good board. Not the, I mean, it's not the greatest board in the world, but it's not horrible.
I mean, yeah, we're losing to 10s and 9s, obviously, which are hands I can have. He probably has a little more 9s than me, but
10-9 suited.
Sure,
he can certainly have a bunch of diamond draws, a bunch of combo draws in there. Just thinking about some hands he can have that interact with this board, but I mean, we've got top.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting board. It's a 3-bet pot, and it's an ace high board. So I think in general you're supposed to take quite a small sizing there. I think it's interesting because the board is so wet. You can make an argument for a larger size. But I went in this case with the very small size. I bet 25 on this board.
So he checked. We bet 25. Yeah, I think I like going bigger here.
Yeah,
just because it is so wet. I'm happy to kind of size out. I mean, it doesn't. Because it's a 3-bet pot. I don't think we have to go crazy. But I think this super small sizing is reserved for either more dry boards or like boards with like multiple broadways that really smash our range. Because like this board, we definitely do have a nut advantage and like a range advantage, but it's not insane.
Right.
There are some boards where we just have such an insane advantage that we just need to give our opponent a chance to catch up. And this is in 3-bet and 4-bet spots specifically. It's actually interesting because I think I read that in theory, on a board that you like totally smash, like Ace King Deuce or something, where Ace King Deuce Rainbow is a great board to bet 25 on. Where apparently in a single raise pot, you're supposed to bet huge on that board because the solver just wants to pile all the money in by the river. Whereas in a 3-bet or 4-bet pot, you don't need to do that because it's a 3-bet or 4-bet pot.
Interesting. That's really not something I knew.
I know. I heard that. I was like, that's so unintuitive. But I guess it makes sense because
I would bet small on those boards in a single raise pot too. And I feel like I've heard the opposite also. So
yeah, it's quite possible. This is one. It may be a specific type of board, but it's just one of these things where it's like, if the board favors your range enough, the solver just says, you know what, just like, we need to just aim for a river shove.
I mean, that's fair. I'm talking about, it's looking at this boards, like ace high boards and 3-bet and 4-bet pots specifically, though. I guess my understanding is you're supposed to go very small because your range contains so many aces. And so your opponent can just fold quite liberally. Like, I actually did take advantage of this in a different hand earlier in the night in a 3-bet pot, where the flop, I had jacks. The flop was like ace 10 8 or something like that, or not ace 10 8. I would have had too much equity. It was like ace 10 5 maybe, and he just bet like 2/3 or 75% pot, and I was just like, all right, muck.
And I do think it definitely in 4-bet pots, like it's one of these interesting things where I would think as your range gets narrower, you can probably apply it on more boards. Like in a I feel like in a 3-bet pot, and I think the configuration also matters, where he opened from the hijack, you 3-bet from the button. Your ranges can be somewhat wide. There can be a pretty decent number of suited hands, of straight draws here. Your 3-betting range is pretty wide, and like not that high percentage of a hands contains an ace. But like if he opened from early position and you re-raised from the small blind or big blind, or if he
or middle position or whatever,
right, or something like that, or if he 3-bet and you 4-bet and he called, now the ranges are getting pretty significantly condensed, and you would expect to see fewer of those combos. So I feel like that is my understanding of where this sort of comes from, is really kind of, and I hear your point that definitely in a 4-bet pot or in one of those super tight scenarios, your range is just going to be so many aces that you just have them crushed so much of the time. But I don't know that that's true in a configuration like this.
And on a board like this. So you've convinced me a larger sizing was in order, but I did not take a large sizing. I just bet 25, and the villain called.
Okay. Well, I think I don't think it can be that wrong to bet small here either. Like, we do have a solid hand, but it's kind of interesting. Like, are you betting 100% of your range here?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm close to. There's probably some hands I'm not. Like, maybe I don't bet like 8s, probably.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
All right, so we go ahead and take a turn. And the turn, I'm sorry, did I say Did I say 9 of hearts on the flop? It was the 9 of diamonds. Oh no, no. I'm sorry. It was the 9. It was the 9 of hearts, and the turn is the 9 of diamonds. We're good. We're good. The turn is the 9 of diamonds.
Okay, so it pairs the bottom card and brings in the front door flush.
So yeah, which is okay. So this card that I screwed up the suit from then is the 10. The 10 was a heart.
So okay, so the 9, so the flop was ace of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 9 of hearts. The turn is now the 9 of diamonds.
Correct. So there's no
okay.
That's what I was trying to get to. Yeah.
And to be fair, yeah, I don't know. No, I was going to say something, but then I realized it goes against everything, all of theory. So never mind.
Okay.
Because it's interesting because we do have the ace of hearts on that board, which gives us a lot more equity, right?
On the
if we have ace of hearts on the new board of ace of diamonds, 10 of hearts, 9 of hearts, we have the backdoor not flush draw.
Right.
Which, but that shouldn't affect our sizing because it is the same board, and we should be betting the same sizing with all our hands theoretically.
Yeah, exactly.
So never mind. So anyway, we're at the turn, and the board is definitely ace 10 9 9 with a heart draw and a diamond draw.
Yep,
that's definitely true.
That is definitely the case. 100%.
Okay.
No. So this card, what's really interesting is the villain now leads, which I think is something that a good reg would do on this card. I think that the out-of-position player should be leading here a lot.
Okay.
Because they're going to have way more 9s than I will. So I shouldn't really have any 9s, actually. Probably.
Sure.
Or maybe the occasional ace 9.
Maybe 10-9 suited.
Yeah, also possible. But he should have way more 9s.
Yep.
So I do like this lead from him. And he leads for 55. So about a third pot.
Pretty small lead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, right? He may be trying to it's a very interesting lead because, I mean, his range feels like it might be like somewhat balanced here, where there's some amount that's like getting value with like a 9 or, a good ace or ace 10 or something like that, and there's a good portion that's like buying a cheap showdown with a flush draw.
Sure. Yeah.
Or buying a cheap river, I should say.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I know. I like this line. What do you want to do in my spot?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like now having the ace of hearts is, I guess it doesn't really affect that much because I think his ace-high flush draws probably shouldn't be taking this line.
Yeah, right. And also, because the ace is paired. Or rather, there's an ace on the board, so... Yeah,
right, exactly. Because I would think he'd do this with more flush draw. If he's doing this with flush draws, they're probably ones that aren't paired up.
Yeah. So
I think I want to raise.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, he does have a 9, but I mean, he does have 9s in his various 9x in his range. But I think I do want to get value from those draws.
If we raise and he rips it, do we fold?
Well, I guess we'd have to think about the price we're getting.
What are we going to raise to? I mean, we're not going to raise it enormous here.
Right, but if we call to 55, then the pot would be 250. So even if we raised a third pot, then we'd be raising to 135. And then if he jammed, we'd have to call 300 to win 400. So yeah, I mean, we have plenty ish. This is all kind of ballpark-ish, but
Yeah, I'm not checking your math. I believe you.
Yeah. You shouldn't.
Yeah, you're a math major.
But anyway, something like that, right? So we could raise, do a small raise here and leave ourselves enough behind to fold to a jam. I mean, do we want to fold to a jam? Is he it's interesting, right? Because we have a pretty strong hand. We're somewhat high up in our range.
We are. I do want to have I wish. Well, I guess not having the King of Hearts is nice.
Yeah, not having a King of Hearts or Diamonds is nice.
Yeah,
because he could float the flop with something like King Jack of Diamonds, right? And then he's got a gut shot with backdoor Diamonds, picks up backdoor Diamonds, and leads.
Yeah, interesting. So just hey, let's see if we can get it in here. Try to get value from the flush draws you would do this with.
It's interesting because I feel like it's one of these situations where if we give the guy credit for being a good player and finding a bunch of bluffs with his 3-bet jams, then I think that play is fine. But very often on this podcast, we have given people a lot of credit for being a good player and finding bluffs, and then they just never have bluffs.
Right, exactly.
So it's an interesting spot, and I wouldn't fault you. I don't think calling is bad. I just think there are so many cards that are like, are we planning on like calling most rivers, like any river, or are we gonna fold if a heart or diamond rolls off on the river?
Oh boy, yeah. I don't know.
I think that's kind of the interesting piece. Is like there are so many bad cards for us on the river that like complete various bluffs from our opponent, and like as you kind of said, like this is a great card for a good reg to lead on. It feels like there should be a lot of bluffs in his range.
Yeah.
And which we are blocking none of, because the only heart or diamond we have is paired.
Which it really shouldn't play this way, right?
Right. So one would think then we actually have a pretty decent combo to bluff to raise and bluff catch a jam, because otherwise, I just don't want to fold rivers, because he can just rep whatever. It's such a weird spot with the double flush draw, because if either completes and he bets big, we're just gonna be in a terrible spot.
No, you're absolutely right. I really do like raising here. I think you're right. I didn't do it in the moment, but I think it's the play raise with intent to call a shove. I think that makes a lot of sense, just given our specific combo and its unblocking properties. So, but in the moment, I just called, which I don't know. Probably leaving myself a tough decision on the river.
Right. So the pot's now 255. We got 380 behind. So we still have, a bunch behind too.
Oh yeah. We have depth.
Okay. And the river is? If the river's a brick, we have a real easy decision. But I assume the river's not a brick.
The river's not a brick. The river is the king of hearts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So we have two pair, but a lot of bluffs get there.
A lot of bluffs get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does he do?
He bets a very tantalizing $100.
Oh. This is such a brutal spot.
I know. I was pretty sure this guy was a decent player when I just from listening to him talk or whatever. But then when he did this, I was like, this is so sick.
The weird thing about this bet is this card is so good for us on the surface, and our hand certainly, villains love to put us on ace king.
That's true.
As you know, villains just love putting us on ace king. And whenever a board comes out, I kind of always think about this, and I need to do a better job thinking about this, but when you are the a 3-better and the board comes out and it's super favorable for you and your opponent just doesn't care, it is usually a bad sign.
Yes, that's true.
Even against a good opponent, they may be more value heavy in the spot.
But what I think is interesting about this too is taking a really large size here from him, I think would actually be pretty bad. I really do. Because I think, as to your point, this card is good for us. We make a lot of nutted hands here.
Right.
And so, as played, king's full. We can already have aces full. We can have, I don't know, we can have straights, we can have flushes. We can have so many nutted hands here, and he can have some too, but we have more. So
yeah, it's the other thing is we're just getting such a good price. This is why live poker is annoying, because and I know this is a thing that Crush Live Poker goes over a lot, is absolute bet size. Which, if this player is good, he shouldn't really be thinking about. But this,
I don't think it's a consideration here.
Okay, well that's good, because I'm just thinking if he's just betting 100 because he's it's 100, it's a lot, and then you're sitting here wow, 100 is so small. I only need to be good here 22% of the time.
I know I'm getting 3.5 to 1, but in the moment, one thing I thought about was turning my hand into a bluff and ripping it.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that, and I was starting to look at the pot and count how we'd be jamming for half pot.
Yeah, but it's a really strong jam.
It is a really strong. It is interesting because we have really good. We have really good blockers.
We have insane blockers, and what better? What other bluffs do we even have here that are what hands? That do we show up with here that have worse showdown value than this hand, which is just offsuit or not, sorry, not offsuit, but suited small aces would be an example of a hand. Like, we could definitely show up here with small suited aces.
But those aren't those don't have the good blocking properties, right?
Right,
the ace
exactly.
of hearts is an important.
I don't
card.
have any hearts. Like, those are just folds.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like ace queen with the ace of hearts.
Is it because we blocked the straight?
I mean, yeah, he could do that. I think the villain could do this with queen jack.
Right.
But it's very
right,
interesting.
Like,
the other thing is
ace king and ace queen of hearts probably, because ace queen of heart like has less showdown value. So I think ace queen. I think we should probably be turning ace queen with an ace of hearts into a bluff here. You think that would be?
I think that's fine. The interesting other thing about blocking properties is even though we have an ace and a king, like our villain should never ever ever have aces or kings here.
No, I think the ace of heart is really the relevant blocking property.
Yeah. Right, so given that, I'd definitely rather use ace-queen, because, I mean, maybe with ace-king we're, like, chopping, maybe we're beating, like, a super overplayed ace-10. I guess probably not. He'd probably be raising that hand on the flop.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily. I don't know that he has a ton of raises on that flop. I don't know.
But ace-10, I mean, I would think ace-10 has got to be one of them.
Yeah, sure. But... yeah, I mean, I don't know.
This bet size is just so tantalizing. Like, I don't mind calling or raising or folding, honestly. Like, I don't really hate any of the options. But, I mean, I don't really like folding because I do think we're good here, like, one in like, you know, 3.5. One in 4.5 times. Like,
probably. I guess calling can't be that bad.
But I think it's interesting to turn your hand into a bluff, and I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, I think it's the play. Like, it's just, to me, it's this... There are lots of better hands I can end up with here, I guess, to... I mean, I guess most of the better hands, though, I would want to raise for value. Like, maybe I'm never calling... Like, do I even have any calls here? Is it just, like, I'm either jamming as a bluffer for value or I'm folding? Like, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, what hands are... Like, are you calling, like, I don't know, if we arrive here with, like, a small flush, are you calling? Like, we have, like, 7-8 of hearts.
Oh, yeah. I would probably just call. Well,
it's pretty much just 7. There aren't a ton of combos. 7-8, 6-7 of hearts.
Yeah.
Pretty much
it's
it.
Weird. Maybe we would want... I would probably want to raise those hands, too, honestly. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I do just call.
I don't hate, but really, I don't hate any of the options. I think it's really interesting to turn our hand into a bluff. I don't think it can be that wrong to fold when our opponent makes the super strong play, but in the end, I would probably just call. But I think finding that line of bluffing is interesting, and I've kind of seen some people talk online. You know, I've definitely seen some tweets that are like, you know, if you want a hero call, try bluffing instead.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're in that situation where your opponent, and especially when our opponent bets small, it's like tough for him to be repping a super nutted hand.
That's true, for sure. And honestly, like, really, I don't really know what we beat. I really don't know what we beat.
Yeah. Okay, so we call.
We call. We get shown a hand that I don't really think villain should have, which is Queen Jack offsuit. Black Queen Jack.
Yeah. It's interesting because we also, like, if the villain's a decent player, like, they might fold that hand to a jam. We do have we are repping, like, some banger hands.
He said yes. I mean, you know, he can say whatever he wants. But
he said what? He would have folded?
He said he would fold. He would have folded to a jam. But, you know, he can say whatever he wants.
So I think I can get on board with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I did not really think Queen Jack was very likely. But that's what he had. So.
Yeah. I mean, sure. There's like Queen Jack suited, right? Like Queen Jack not of hearts, because I do think Queen Jack of hearts is like just like jamming.
Probably. Yeah. So
because that's just like such a gross spot. Like if your opponent jams, like you probably call.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but anyway, yeah. So we get owned. I really think we just got stone outplayed in this hand. So.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, fun stuff. What do you got for us, Josh?
I've got a hand where I might have gotten stone outplayed.
Nice.
So we're really moving along well. And this is another 1-3 hand. It's another hand from Encore Boston Harbor. In this hand, the effective stack's going to be just a hair over 500 again. 510 in this case. That's me. The villain covers. He's been playing somewhat aggressive. I'd say I don't know that he's like a, super like a reg or a pro or anything like that, but he's definitely reasonably competent, doing a good amount of pre-flop raising. He was also the only other person who was always straddling with me.
Nice.
The straddle was sporadic around the table, but he was always straddling. He was happy to play big pots. He was raising his straddle quite a lot. I suspect he was probably a little more aggressive than maybe he should have been, but good for him. He was doing great. He covered me by a bunch. He totally, he was just a good, really nice dude to play poker with as well.
Cool.
So there are 2 limps to me. The straddle is not on. I am in the hijack, and I raise King 4 of hearts to 20.
Okay. Less exciting than A7 of hearts.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this is...
I think I would fold this one.
Yeah, I think that's...
This is mostly...
hijack, yeah. I'm probably happy to fold this most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
I decided to get fun and raise. I think it's probably borderline. It's probably on the edge.
I think you can do it like once in a blue moon.
Well, let's call this a blue moon and pretend that I didn't raise other suited kings over limps.
Something tells me you're not randomizing this.
Well,
Yeah.
I quickly asked my watch, hey, give me a number from 1 to 100.
Okay, so we get frisky with the King 4.
We get frisky with the King 4, and we get called by the button, who is the villain.
No.
And both limpers.
Okay. Well, this sucks.
It does. I agree. I did realize after, I was like, yep, that was probably too loose. Yep. So, that's life. You're playing 1-3, you feel like raising. Sometimes aggression is the key. Sometimes it isn't.
Okay, so how much? So you raised it to how much?
I raised it to 20 over 2 limps once again.
Okay, so we're at 80 now.
We're 80 in the pot, 490 behind. And the flop makes me not regret my decision at all. It is nice. King of clubs, 4 of clubs, deuce of diamonds.
Damn, you're good.
So we make top 2. We flop top 2.
Love it.
It checks to me, and I think I should be betting here.
I agree. If you checked here after you freaking opened this hand and flopped up 2, it'd be pretty lame.
Yep.
You can get called, of course, in seriousness, you can get called by all sorts of flush draws. You can get called by a decent amount of like ace high that, maybe it's like feels like, oh, I have a backdoor.
Ace high with the ace of clubs. Certainly all sorts of king X.
Yeah. So
ace, maybe ace 3, ace 5 as well.
Totally.
Yeah. I bet 40, which is about a little under half pot, and I think is probably too big.
I agree that, like, from a theoretical perspective, this is too big, but I don't think it really. We talk a lot about, like, flop sizing is one of those things in live poker that I think, like, small size, like anything less than half pot, they're pretty interchangeable, I think, in live poker. So I don't think it can be that bad.
And I also think, like, there's a flush draw on the board. I might do this with some, with a decent number of hands. I think anything bigger than half pot is definitely a mistake multi-way. That's how you just get everyone to fold, and you just like are left with top 2 pair and a small pot.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think there are certain boards where I will take a large sizing multi-way, and I don't know if it's theoretically correct, but it seems right to me, which is really these just like Queen Jack 9 flush draw boards, like really, really connected and Broadway and draw heavy. Like, I do tend to take quite large sizing on those boards. I don't know if it's right. But
does that mean you're betting like a super small percentage of your hands?
Yes, I'm very much checking those.
So you're betting like King 10, you're betting like pocket queens, pocket jacks, not flush draws, combo draws, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then like, maybe some weird like gutter to balance it. But yeah, basically, like ace 8.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, go ahead.
Well, I bet 40, and the only person who I didn't want to call me calls me. Which is the button, who also happens to be the pretty decent player.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So we remain out of position.
We're beaten. We're good.
Yeah. I mean, we have a very strong hand. I'm feeling pretty good about this situation. I do think this player can definitely be calling me with all sorts of hands. And the turn now comes the 8 of clubs.
8 of clubs.
So the board is now King of clubs, 4 of clubs, deuce of diamonds. Turn brings the 8 of clubs, which completes the front door flush draw. And I am now out of position and heads up. And I don't know. What do you like to do here? Should we? I kind of feel like, continuing with 2 pair to get value from. We can still get value from a whole host of hands of the hands that we discussed on the flop.
Yeah, I actually really like a bet here. We can, especially like 1 club hands now are always going to call us. Like if he had like a pair, like King X, basically. Like I guess if he has like King X where the other card's a club,
Sure.
he's going to really call us here. I mean, we can obviously, we can look to fold to some raises too, depending on the sizing. So I like a bet here. I don't even like just. I like a large-ish bet here, like 2/3 probably. I think.
Okay.
The sizing that's appropriate for this board is like a larger sizing,
Right.
not like an overbet. Obviously, that would be crazy.
Right, but like right. I know what you're saying. Like I might not even be betting like ace king no club here.
Sure.
Like I probably would be. It's probably mixed with like ace king, but like I'm probably not betting like bad kings.
Like king jack.
King jack no club probably checking. So our frequency is definitely going down, right? So okay, so I do wind up betting 100, which is pretty much in that 2/3 range.
Beautiful.
It's interesting. I just really was not sure how to approach the sizing. It's like an interesting spot where like my hand is, and this is certainly associated with playing king 4 suited preflop, where even the hands that flop quite well wind up turning and rivering worse.
Yeah, it's not a very good hand actually.
Yeah, so to everyone who is wondering, why don't I just raise all my suited kings? Please refer your friends to this segment of the video right here.
And you preface it with, all right, so these 2 donks, right?
So this guy opened king 4, right?
Yeah.
It's called Bankroll Burners. You'll see why. And he thinks about it for a little bit, and then he calls.
Love it.
So I certainly agree. He could have some. He could have some sort of 1 club hands. He could certainly like have like a combo draw at this point, ace 3, ace 5 with 1 club. He could have lots of hands with ace.
I agree, and I actually think you almost always have the best hand here. To be honest, I think he's going to raise any value better than yours, like on this card. I suspect.
I think it's interesting because the thing is, so when he calls, the effective stack is now 350 and the pot's about 360. So it's basically a 1-to-1 SPR. So I don't know that he has to raise like value hands here.
Yeah, he doesn't have to, but I mean, he's going to check some frequency of flushes here, I guess. But I think a lot of players, especially if this guy is a little savvier, are going to know that there's going to be a number of disaster rivers for them, where it's going to be so much harder to get value.
Yeah,
and you've actually shown a lot of strength, so you're quite likely to call off.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if he jams, it's a really gross spot. Mm-hmm. If he had jammed here, like, I don't know if I feel like I probably have to call.
I think so.
But, like, it sucks.
Yeah.
But he just calls. So that leaves us about a pot-sized bet behind. And the river is now going to come a total... Well, actually, not quite a total brick. It's a 3 of spades.
3 of spades.
It's not a total brick.
Ace 5 gets there.
Ace 5 gets there, but any other sort of ace of clubs X hand does not.
Can you review the board for our listeners?
Of course, yes. We opened pre-flop over 2 limps with king 4 of hearts, which we are advising against is the party line. We got 3 callers, including the button. But the flop bailed us out with king 4 deuce with 2 clubs, the king and the 4 of clubs. We bet about half pot and only the button continued. The turn brought in the front door flush with the 8 of clubs. We now bet 100, which is about 2/3 pot, and get called. And the river brings in the 3 of spades, which changes very little but does complete ace 5, which we have concluded that the villain can have in some frequency when it contains the ace of clubs.
Cool. So, what did you do? Or I'm like unsure. I don't know what worse hands call us on this river.
Yeah, I think checking makes a lot of sense, especially if we've determined that like some portion, a lot of the hands that the value hand, the hands that we're trying to get value from probably are done with giving value. Like a one-paired King X hand could probably find a fold. I guess like King Queen.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. Can King Queen?
King Queen with a club can probably call us.
Yeah, and live players can get sticky. You might call without a club too. So.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But I mean, there are also a lot of these Ace X hands. Maybe some other hands with clubs, like pocket 10s, pocket 9s with a club are not calling us at this point, but might bluff.
What is like the... So does the weakest hand you're betting for value on this river like a set?
Probably.
Okay.
Well,
are you...
It's interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, this hand is basically a set.
Yes and no, because you are blocking some top pairs that you were trying to get called by.
That's true. So, yes. Although, what sets do I have as played? I probably don't have a lot of 4s or deuces.
You probably have some. If you don't, I don't know that you have a lot of King 4 suited, do you, Josh?
Point taken. I might find I might find a raise once in a while with 4s or deuces.
So, yeah.
But it is
let's say you had a set. Let's say you had pocket 4. I think you should bet pocket 4s, for the record.
Yep.
What kind of sizing would you take if you had pocket 4s?
I mean, it's a really tough spot because like we only have a pot size bet behind.
Right.
I don't know if I should. I might just be supposed to. Like, I might just be jamming with all my value.
Interesting.
Because like I don't know that we can bet fold.
Yeah, you're right. You can't block fold.
Right. There's just not enough, and like, yeah.
So maybe you're not supposed to bet. Well, you might be supposed to bet 4s still, even for an all-in sizing. Maybe.
Right. It's interesting.
Maybe
like Ace King
maybe
Ace King with the Ace of Clubs is like a good hand to bet because we block a lot of the hands that you can turn into bluffs. So maybe we can block fold with Ace King because we block all his bluffs.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a weird spot, man. I don't know.
King 4 moments.
Are you gonna if you check and he jams, what are you gonna do? Or
I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit, right? It's just gonna be a terrible spot, and I'm like, I might just have to like side fold.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I think.
But can I jam here with King 4? Like,
it's so thin.
It's very thin.
Yeah. Okay.
So I basically decided to check, and I'm kind of thinking I'm probably leaning towards folding to a jam, but maybe I shouldn't be because there are certainly a lot of. I mean, also if he's like a decent player, and I haven't seen him showdown that much offsuit Ace X, and he really shouldn't have like any offsuit Ace X, right? Shouldn't. I don't really. So I don't really know his strategy.
Yeah, he could probably have some Ace Queen with the Ace of Clubs, probably.
So we check, and now he bets 150.
I hate it.
Yeah, which is but like it's interesting because it's kind of a similar situation to the bet that you faced in your last hand.
It is similar, but you don't have the option of jamming here. You have no fold equity.
Yeah, and I have no blockers.
I think you just have to call, and you're going to lose here a lot, but you don't have to win that much, right? You only have to win
basically the same as you. I'm getting like 2 1/3 or 3 1/3 to 1.
Yeah, just call.
Okay. Yeah, it's really the decision of checking versus betting on the river that I think is interesting, and like what hands I should be betting. Like maybe Ace King is just like is able to block fold, but then does that mean we should block call with like sets? And should we block call with flushes? Like is really like.
I don't hate the idea of just having one size on this particular river and this particular depth.
Right. But do you think like if I somehow show up here, if I get here with Ace 6 of clubs, like do I really want to bet 100?
No, I think you should shove.
So you think I should shove with like Ace King?
I think shoving is no. I mean Ace King might be a check.
Yeah, but like I think if we're checking ace king with the ace of clubs, then it's probably a fold. If he bets, because we block, because like a key part here is like if we think he's bluffing with like a bunch of ace x with the ace of clubs hands, which are pretty much the only real logical bluffs here.
No, okay, so you're saying you can block full ace king with the ace of clubs, maybe you can block call with a set.
But then if we want to be jamming flushes, that kind of goes out the window.
Because then what are we?
Because like we really if we want to take the same sizing with all our hands.
Right. So maybe I'm saying like you should on most rivers have two sizings. So and you're convincing me that there is a block sizing here. I guess.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a bit convoluted.
Okay. So moral is
it makes sense to have two sizing on this river. One sizing which is a block sizing, which can block fold with certain combos, and then an all-in sizing with most of our hands that we want to bet, and then a lot of checking, and a lot of you have to have some check calls.
I mean, and this is a pretty good, it's an okay check call.
Yeah, I might like king queen with the queen of clubs a little better
because that actually blocks a lot of value.
Yeah,
like queen jack, queen 10, queen 9 of clubs. Yep.
But I think this is, I mean, for this sizing you can't fold. So.
Yep, that's pretty much the conclusion I came to. I was like, basically, I wish you had jammed, because then I like maybe could have found a fold.
Yeah.
But I call, and he chose queen jack of clubs.
Yeah.
So another queen jack hand. We're just getting owned by queen jack in this episode.
Seriously. And I will say, like, I think you're gonna lose there, like, about 75% of the time.
But that's okay because we only need to win. We only need to win like 23% of the time to be profitable.
Exactly. So yeah.
And like he could do this with this sizing for like I don't know, 4 deuce, 4-3, like some random hand that like makes 2 pair.
Yeah, he can. He can also bluff with this. Like I see.
People can bluff. I forget.
Yeah. So people, I don't know. So anyway, I think it's fine. You just gotta call.
Yep. Okay. Well, I do. And yeah, I do not have the option of turning my hand into a bluff, so I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to the last hand of the night.
All right, this one's a banger. So,
excellent.
We are 800 effective. It is 3 a.m. We have been playing for many hours. There is a talkative table. There is some talking during hands that should not be going on at this table, but it is very late and the dealers are tired. So,
my memory of Best Bet Orange Park from the one session I played there is that the dealers were less involved in the table ongoings than at some of the other poker rooms I've played at.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think they do a very good job enforcing the rules, honestly. I think they're very balanced and fair. I think they do a good job not enforcing the dumb rules for the most part and enforcing the smart ones. I think... I don't know. I don't even remember who the dealer was in this hand. I think it was just like really freaking late.
Yeah. So, fair enough. And you know what? If everyone at the table is kind of okay with like saying, table talk and whatever, then house rule it in. Whatever.
Yeah. It was fine. It wasn't a big deal. So there was really nothing bad happening. I was just trying to set the tone. This was like a loosey goosey situation.
So anyway, you find yourself with king 4 suited, and there are 2 limps here.
So. An aggressive villain and under the gun +1, and this is a 8-handed game. We have under the gun +1, aggressive villain opens, who's off a $300 stack. This is going to be important. So we are 800 effective with the main villain, but this villain only has $300.
Okay.
Opens to $20, standard open. Gets called in the cutoff, who's not going to be very relevant here. And a small blind, who is the main villain, also completes. And a bit on the small blind, he hasn't been there that long. I can tell he studies the game a bit. That's basically all I can tell about him.
Okay.
So, yep. And I complete in the big blind with 9-7 of clubs.
Okay.
I think this is a very standard defend.
Yep, I think it's reasonable. Getting a great price, and we actually have a hand that plays okay multi-way.
Yeah,
there are some reverse implied odds to consider at this point, but unlikely. It's not likely that we're going to stack off with a pair
Right. But that's what I was going to say is like, I don't think this hand has terrible reverse implied odds because 9 is never going to be top pair by the river. So,
But flushes, like it actually starts having reverse implied odds with flushes. 150
but we're
big
100
blinds.
and
Yeah,
or 160 big blinds deep. It's like
I'm not too worried about it. I'm happy with this call.
yeah.
I can't believe you're playing so loose pre-flop. I am the pillar of tightness.
Yeah.
Before
Mr. Disciplined over here.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah.
Okay.
So small blind. So main villain, studies the game a bit. Seems solid, but that's basically all we know about him.
So there's 780 effective now, but the original opener only has 280 behind.
Yes, and like I said, original opener is aggressive. So
yep.
Flop comes Queen of Spades, 9 of Diamonds, 5 of Clubs.
Okay.
So we flop a gut shot with a backdoor flush draw.
I don't think we do flop a gut shot.
Queen 8-5. We have 9-7.
Okay, I think you said 9. Queen of Spades, 8 of Diamonds.
8 of Diamonds, 5 Clubs. I apologize.
I like that a lot better than flopping middle pair in a backdoor.
Yes, so we have a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. So
yep, and a backdoor other straight draw too.
True. Yeah. So check. Small blind checks. I check. I don't think I'm ever betting here, leading out here, and the aggressive under the gun +1 player now bets half pot. That's $40.
Yep. Opener bets 40. Okay.
Cut off quickly folds.
Okay.
And the small blind calls.
Okay.
And we have our first decision point of the hand.
Okay.
What do you like?
Oh, such a weird spot already.
Immediately the stack sizes are just like, oh my crap! Like there's multi-way poker. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, we obviously do have better bluffs if we chose to start raising. We got 6-7.
Sure,
which
that's
is good.
Though.
And like I don't know, maybe 9-10, 10 jack.
What value would we want to raise here? That was one thing I asked myself. It's like, we can obviously have 5s and 8s here. We can never have queens.
We can have Queen 8 suited, and we can probably have Queen 5 suited too.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
If we're completing 9-7 suited, I assume we're completing Queen 5 suited with decent.
Queen 5 starts to get a little weird, but maybe I would complete there. I don't know. Then you start to run into like pair problems, but like top pair reverse implied odd.
True, that's good. That's fair.
I don't think I have Queen 5 here much, but Queen 8 I definitely have, even though I maybe shouldn't, to be honest, but I do. And so, but I'm like, am I ever? But I mean, mostly it's sets. Like, am I raising sets on this flop much? Am I supposed to? Just given the stack, like, I was like, because at the time I was like, okay, if I'm going to raise here, it's probably be like 150, 160 ish, and if the under the gun player calls, we'll have, I think he's gonna have about half pot.
Well, I don't know if we should raise to 1 because, like, I think if we are not raising that often, if it's basically sets and our best bluffs, then we should be taking a large sizing.
True.
And a large sizing here is like 250, is like 240 is like a pot size raise.
So we should be like putting the under the gun player all
right, and that was going to be my next point. Is if we're doing that, we should probably just raise to 280. But do we have enough fold equity against this player? With our bluffs,
or also it's so strong. Also, there's not a lot of worse hands that are call us. Like, yeah, I mean, there's just queens.
Well, right, but that's fine because we have because our range is balanced.
Yeah.
So okay, great. If no hands are calling us, then do it all day with 7-9 of clubs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's weird.
So I would say I would either raise to 280. Or I think that's fine to just float here.
Yeah.
Because we are in position on the big stack. We have pretty okay equity. I wouldn't call it good, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. If we, I hadn't actually considered raising to put the under the gun +1 player all in. I had not considered that in game. That's a really interesting thought. Let me just play this out. So if we do that, and they fold, and then but the small blind calls. So if we make it 280 and the small blind calls, we're gonna have
650 in the pot. Nah, a little more than 680 in the pot. And 500
no,
behind?
I think you were. I think it's closer to 650 because it's 280 twice, so that's 560 plus
120.
40. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. 680. Okay,
And then we'll have
680.
500 behind.
So then we're jamming turn
Yeah.
on bricks.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of want that's why I kind of want to do it if we're gonna bluff and we're not raising anything except sets. Then I'd probably rather do it with 6-7 because then we actually can jam bricks because we actually still have a significant number of outs.
Yeah. So I actually don't know. I think I think just calling here is probably.
Yeah, or we could raise and then check back bricks and jam clubs or tens. Right, like because a 10 improves us to an open ender.
Oh, I see. And then, but then, like, are we just like giving up rivers then if we miss turn?
If we check back turn because we didn't pick up any equity, then yeah, we probably have to shut down. I mean, if he checks us again on rivers, maybe we can bet.
Yeah,
we run into a weird spot, but I'm okay just calling here as we kind of run through that and realize we don't have that many value hands, so we don't need that. So we're taking a large sizing. We don't need many bluffs, and we have better bluffs. So fine.
Yeah,
Let's
so I think just calling here, possibly with our entire range, makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I think I do. I mean, I don't dislike raising sets and open enders, like sets and 6-7 here.
Okay.
But yes, that's fine.
Okay.
We call. Sounds like we call.
Yeah, I did just call in game. And I think check. I think probably with sets we're supposed to raise sometimes and call sometimes. So.
That mixed strategies are good.
Yeah. So, okay. So we call, and we are now 3 ways to a turn with about 180 or 200 in the pot rather.
Yep.
In the turn is the deuce of hearts, so we complete the rainbow.
Brick, brick, brick.
Yeah. And here's where the hand goes a bit off the rails. The small blind now leads for 115.
Okay. And it sounds like you didn't just snap fold.
That's correct.
Okay.
So in my mind, it could be 2 pair.
Sure.
But there aren't a lot of 2 pairs possible.
That's true. It's a pretty ragged board.
I mean, Queen 8 suited is a hand he absolutely should not have, but could.
Okay.
Completing out of the small. But I think that's it.
For 2 pairs, I'd probably agree.
Yeah.
Could have sets and just decided not to raise them to try and bring you in.
Yeah. I think a set is also possible. I don't know that I would lead with a set, I guess. Maybe. But yeah. I very rarely see leading with sets, I guess. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. But I thought the most likely hand that would play this way is a queen.
Okay.
Does that seem reasonable to you?
Like what kind of bluff? We block the bluffs.
Yeah, I don't think he has a bluff here. I think he has a queen.
Oh, a queen. I thought you said a bluff.
No, I said a queen.
A queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know that people like to check call lead a whole lot with top pair.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I know people love to lead flops with top pair. Let's get that out of the way. I think check call leading in a multi-way pot with top pair is not something I see a whole lot of.
Okay.
But
this card is such a brick. I figured like, I guess what went around is like, oh, it's a safe card for his top pair.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know.
That's true.
I'm just like trying to get in their head.
I
don't know.
It's kind of interesting because like maybe he wants to like isolate the short stack here also. Like that is kind of a dynamic where maybe he just is like, oh well, let me get this guy out and then I'll just like call off the jam from the short stack because I have a top pair and it's a short stack.
Interesting. Okay.
So sure, maybe the presence of the short stack would make me more likely to think that he could be doing this with a queen.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I thought in game. It might be faulty logic. Maybe actually it's just really nutted, but I didn't think it was, I guess.
Okay.
So I decide that I'm going to run a 2-street bluff on this queen that I'm perceiving. What do you think about that?
Well, I think if we were going to do this, I would have preferred to run the 2-street bluff on the flop in the turn.
Interesting. Why is that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of for all the reasons that we discussed on the flop, where it's like, you know, when like our raise looks so strong on the like raising flop jamming turn, I think is just gonna have much better fold equity, and there are a lot of cards that we can continue barreling on the turn, and maybe we can barrel bricks, maybe not. I think like I don't know. I think that it's just a really weird spot when there's still the original raiser left to act behind us now, where you know, like previously like on the flop they you know, he bet kind of on the smaller side. I guess he bet half pot, and the small blind calls, which feels like, you know, caps his range as that at that point to some extent, but maybe he's not really raising anything. I don't know. I think if we're gonna, I just don't know that like what are we representing when we raise on this brick?
I was thinking I was representing a set.
Right. But it's that like I think that the logic that you apply to the leader can kind of be applied to you as well. That's like, well, there just aren't like, you know, would he be doing this with a set, or would he just be calling now in position?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a really weird spot multi-way. It's multi-way poker where just, you know, I don't really know what you're actually supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, probably just supposed to just fold. I don't know.
I'm definitely most happy folding here, but I'm less happy calling than raising.
Yeah, calling I think is very bad. But so I go ahead and I make it 300, which I think is too large.
You think it's too large?
Yeah, because if he calls here, we're going to be left with 440 on the river, which is not, like, it's like half pot-ish.
Right, but our raise here is like less than half pot. Which, again, I think we want to think, how many hands are we raising here?
Well, no, I mean, look, I understand, like, when you're not raising very often, you're supposed to use a larger size, but that sort of isn't necessarily true when you start to take stack sizes into consideration. Like, it would be really dumb to raise to, like, 400 here and then have, like, a tiny little bit left in the river. And I also think jamming here doesn't make a ton of sense either.
Well, see, if I'm just thinking, if we jammed here, that would be like a pot size raise.
Really?
Because if we call 115, it's 430. So a pot size raise, no, not quite. A pot size raise would be like 550. So it'd be like 1.5 times pot.
740.
It'd be like 1.5 times pot.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we might do with sets.
Yeah, we might.
Like, I'd probably...
I don't know if I would. But I see what you're saying, that, like, maybe that's not crazy.
Like, if we're trying to rep a set, it feels like...
Aren't you supposed to do that? Aren't you only really supposed to do that when, like, their range is pretty capped? Which I guess, in some respects, his is.
I mean, if you perceive his range as being sort of capped as a queen...
Yeah.
Then it's probably okay. But also, there's a guy behind you!
Yeah.
Ah!
Maybe it's probably like I'm probably just supposed to just muck here. But anyway, I made it 300. I would have preferred a sizing of 250 with the understanding that he's probably not going to fold turns to any kind of sizing other than perhaps literally a jam. So might as well take the smaller size on the turn so we maximize river fold equity.
Right.
But
sure.
So I made it
I see your point about the whole river fold equity and sizing as well. So I understand that this size probably in the middle is probably the least appropriate.
Yeah, it's the worst of both worlds. So, and under the gun +1 does fold pretty quickly.
Okay.
And he was like, "Oh well, I guess the deuce helped all of us." Was what I was like, "Bruh."
So he had like ace deuce with a backdoor, most likely.
Yeah, or
something like that.
You know what he had.
Okay.
But he mucks. So, and the small blind takes a little bit and makes the call, which I basically expected.
So we've got now 800 in the pot, and now we've got 440 behind. So to your point, it's basically a half pot. It's a little over a half pot size bet left.
Yeah. So here I am now praying for a 6,
which would just be so sick.
Be so sick. But alas, we get the 4 of hearts, which I don't hate because it completes 6-7.
Does complete 6-7.
Yeah. So.
I mean, we've come this far.
We've come this far.
We have 9. We have 9 high.
We have 9 high, and I do get checked too. So we go ahead and we put the stack in.
Well, I think that this decision's kind of trivial. Yeah. Like I think like the 4 of hearts completes what should actually be our best bluff. We have 9 high, and we raised the turn with the express purpose of running a 2-street bluff.
Yep.
So I think regardless of the outcome or what we, whether our turn decision was correct, I think as played we just have to jam. So I'm not going to argue with you.
Yep, we jam.
Fully supported.
Yep. And we get a long tank. This villain is in the blender. And this is when I find out that I think he's studied the game more than I thought, because he starts running through combos.
Did he go through 7-9 of clubs?
He did not. He did not.
Noob.
No. But he just goes like, well, let me see. What would you... like 6, 7, 5s, 8s, maybe queen 8. Then he goes, maybe I should just flip a coin. I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm so fucked. Anyway, he does put chips in the middle.
Okay. And what does he have?
What do you think?
Queen 5.
Queen, Jack.
Wow. Offsuit?
Offsuit.
So he's studied the game enough to run through combos, but not enough to fold Queen Jack offsuit from the small blind pre-flop.
People really, as we have learned in this podcast, people enjoy over V-pipping Queen Jack offsuit.
Queen Jack is, my opponent, to be fair, did have Queen Jack. But it was suited.
It is suited.
So, wow. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't. It's an interesting. It's a creative line, and I like I said, I definitely think we have to take this line on the river. But I think I'd just prefer going for a flop turn bluff if we're gonna make this play. But to your point, if we're not even raising sets at 100% frequency, or 2 pair at 100% frequency, and there aren't that many value combos, then this hand may not make the cut.
You mean for raising the flop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess ultimately, Josh, is this just a spew? Is this just a punt, or was this a sick play that didn't work out? That's what I've been wondering about for the past 24 hours. Did I punt my stack?
I think I would just fold turn. I think that I do think that is probably just the way to not spew, is to just especially with a guy behind you, being in the middle. I think we can just turn down our bluff. If we're not, I think we just turn down our bluffing frequency pretty significantly. And, especially multi-way, I think just, trying to keep it to actual, high equity bluffs is probably better. Which is why I think, if we have 6-7, by all means, let's either bluff the flop or the turn and run, a sick bluff where we just barrel super hard on bricks. Because we do need to balance our range, because we do want to get paid when we have sets.
Absolutely. No, I think this would have been a better line with 6-7. I don't know that there's really other bluffs besides 6-7, but the thing is we have so little value, we probably just don't even need. I don't even know that I would raise Queen 8 as played. I might just call.
Which gives us 6 combos of sets.
Yeah. So
really interesting. And the other, also against our opponent's specific hand.
You keep using these words interesting and creative. I'm pretty sure those are synonymous with punch.
No, because I'm really trying to think about it. Because I'm the other thing is, if our opponent has a queen, if he showed you his hand on the turn, you would probably make this play.
Yes, I would have.
Which kind of adds to the mystique.
Yeah.
Is it a good play or is it a punt? Because I would expect villain to fold Queen Jack.
I would too, until he started running through combos.
But maybe our line is just so we are definitely repping a very narrow range. I guess what it comes down to is I would lean towards spew, because we just have so few value combos that if we're bluffing 9-7 with a backdoor, or I guess not even a backdoor anymore on the turn, then we're probably over bluffing.
I think that's very fair. Obviously we have, especially because we do. Oh no, that's not. I was gonna say we pick up some flush draws, but we obviously don't. It's a rainbow turn. Yeah, to villain's credit, if I said I had never V-pipped Queen Jack off from the small blind, I would be lying. So
yeah, sure.
So.
Oh, not the villain made a. I think the villain just sussed it out correctly, but it's it's one of those spots. It's one of those spots where you really run into in live poker too. That's as you mentioned at the beginning, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it's one of these games that is like, damn, if I make hands, I'm going to go home like a millionaire.
Sure.
And if I don't make hands, I'm going to have to bluff. And, like, sometimes people just don't fold.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, well played. When he said maybe I should just flip a coin, I was kind of like, well, I think that's going to give me the best odds of winning, so please do.
You should have pulled one out of your pocket.
Here.
I don't think that would have worked well.
Is that weak? Is that weak or strong?
It's it because I think it looks weak on the surface, which makes it strong. I think that's what Super System says.
Big brain. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to us for another hour. Prattle on about some punts, about getting absolutely wrecked by Queen Jack. That's the moral of the story.
Just to see, the only hand that one of us won in this episode, our opponent had Queen, which makes it a substantially worse hand than Queen Jack.
That's just math, folks.
So, please, like, subscribe, leave a comment of what your favorite hand is and why it's Queen Jack.
Yeah, tell us what you love about Queen Jack.
Especially offsuit.
Especially the offsuit variety. All right, everybody, you've been lovely. Have a good night. I'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone.